What's going on, beer lovers? Welcome to another episode. Today is Homebrew Day, and I brought some friends along for the ride. We're actually going to be messing around with some water chemistry in this batch, so stick around. Today, we're brewing a Hazy IPA. Let's have some beer. Alright guys, so welcome to another episode. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jacob.
I'm Paul.
And today we're brewing a Hazy Double IPA. Now, I brought Paul along. He is a fellow home brewer and craft beer fanatic as well. He knows quite a bit about water chemistry, and it's something I wanted to start dabbling in. I told him that, I was going to give it a shot today, and he offered to come by and help us with the brew. So, if you guys are ready, let's go ahead and get started. Paul's going to talk a little bit about water chemistry and how it works with beer. Alright guys, so I'm here with Paul, and he's pretty well versed in water chemistry, so he's going to help us out today. But Paul, I got a question for you. How did you get into water chemistry when it comes to home brewing?
Well, I would make a beer, and sometimes it would come out perhaps a little flabbier, a little rounder than what I thought the beer should be, or perhaps the hop bitterness, or that there was too much sharpness to the beer. So what I would do is I'd actually take some of these chemicals or acids, dilute them, and then actually dose my beers and feed it to friends and family and wife, and try to get a perception of what made the beer better and what made it worse. And I'd take that feedback and I'd go ahead and work that into my next brew day.
Excellent. So what you're saying is basically there are different salts and chemicals that can influence the profile of your beer.
Yeah, and if you actually, if you pour tap water through a carbon filter, there's about 5 key minerals here that we've got highlighted, and these minerals play a huge role in the brewing process, and if we tweak them one way or another way, we basically end up with a different water profile.
Awesome. So that's what we're going to do today, so let's go ahead and get started with our water chemistry. Alright, so you have a water sample, so what's next?
Yeah, so this is our starting water profile. Our starting water should be about 7 pH. You might see it kind of drifting up there. pH meters, important tool to go ahead and test your water. It's always important to calibrate these with these buffering solutions. There's a high and a low, and basically what those do is just make sure the meter's within range. What we want to do is, obviously, a pH of 7 is, we're not going to want to brew with that kind of water. We want to go ahead and drop that down. Our grains will go ahead and drop that pH down as well. Darker grains will drive it further down than lighter grains. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and use some lactic acid and gypsum here to go ahead and bring down our pH. And then we'll use some calcium chloride, being that we're doing a hazy IPA. We're going to want about 2 parts calcium chloride to 1 part sulfate to make a rounder beer.
Okay, so softer mouthfeel.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So what we're going to start with is a little bit of lactic acid. That'll go ahead and drive our pH down. A bit of gypsum here. We're probably going to use about 1/3 gypsum, 2/3 calcium chloride, and we'll go ahead and just put those right into the kettle, and that should give us our starting water that we'll go ahead and mash in with.
Alright, so we got our strike water ready. It was at 168 degrees when I put it in here, and now we're going to mash in. So Jacob, go ahead and start pouring.
Alright, let's do this.
And I'm going to start stirring so we don't get any clumps.
Alright guys, boil just started. Got 1/2 ounce of Citra right here, so I'm about to dump that in. It smells really nice. Alright, woo! That's so much protein! she goes.
All right, so we're doing a Flameout edition of 1 ounce Citra, 1 ounce Cascade. A little salt bay there for you. And then we have, what was this? Uni? Yeah, a little Uni edition, also known as Orange Zest.
Alright guys, so we have been cooling the beer down. We're sitting at around 160, and now it's time to do our Whirlpool edition. I got Paul here using the wort chiller as our stirrer basically, and then I'm adding 3 ounces of hops. 1 ounce of Citra, 1 ounce of Cascade, and 1 ounce of Amarillo. So we're gonna toss that in here right now. Let's go ahead and get in there. Booyah. Yeah, you feeling that forearm?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like your teenage days. So yeah, now we're gonna let this sit for a little bit, and then we'll cool it down to fermenting temperatures. Alright guys, so we're about to dump our wort into the fermenter. It's not quite cold enough to pitch yet, but we're going to put it in here, cool it down with some ice packs, and then we'll pitch. We are about to start fermentation. Here we go. What's going on, guys? Welcome back. It has been about 3 days since brew day, and our beer is fermenting away, and it's time to add our first dry hop addition. I am putting a lot of hops into this beer. Basically, it's everything right here that you're looking at. This is 2 ounces of Citra, 2 ounces of Amarillo, and an ounce of Cascade. So I've been sanitizing a hop bag nearby. I have it soaking in Star San. So I'm gonna go ahead and wring that out. The reason we do this is now that we've pitched the yeast, fermentation has begun, and you don't want any bad bacteria getting into your beer. So here's my sanitized hop bag. By the way, I sanitize everything that I have here right now. See if I can do this without spilling any. I think we're okay. I got my little hop bag here, my little sanitized hop bag. I am going to actually do a little trick. If you guys have watched the show, you've probably seen it before, or if you're a home brewer, you probably already know it. I am adding marbles. That's right, marbles are going into this bag. The reason why is these marbles are going to weigh the bag down, and that is going to allow the hops to soak in the beer. There you are. Beautiful, beautiful little hop bag. And we're gonna go ahead and open the top here and put it in. Well, alright guys, there you have it. We have sealed everything back up. The dry hopping is complete. The next step is waiting until this thing's done fermenting, basically. As soon as I see that I'm almost at my target final gravity, I'm gonna do one more hop addition for about 2 days, and then I'm kegging this bad boy. So we'll see you then. What's going on, guys? Welcome back. It has been about 8 days since our first dry hop edition. It is time to do our second dry hop edition. So today, basically, I'm gonna do a couple things. One, I'm gonna take the hop bag that's already in there out for From what I hear, some people say that leaving the hops in there too long can cause some off flavors, stuff like that. And honestly, at this point, after sitting in there a week, the beer's probably already pulled out all the flavor it's gonna get out of those hops. So we're gonna pull that out. We're also gonna take a gravity reading. I already pulled some of the beer off of the fermenter. We're gonna do a gravity reading in a minute. And then also we are going to add our second dry hop addition. This second dry hop addition, this is a combination of 2 ounces of Citra, 2 ounces of Amarillo, and an ounce of Cascade. So basically the exact same thing that I did in the first dry hop edition. So yeah, we're gonna get started. I'm gonna go ahead and pull off the top and pull out the hop bag. I am gonna lose some liquids in this beer because I'm doing that, but in all honesty, I think I'd lose them anyways. Dropping these bad boys in. Probably didn't need to drop them that hard, that was my bad. We are back in action. My guess is I'm gonna leave this fermenting for another few days, but really the way I'm gonna know is by checking the gravity and where we're at right now with our beer. So I'm gonna check that right now. First things first, guys, look at that. That is beautiful. It still maintained its color. It's still nice and hazy, so no browning. Staring at the fermenter itself, I do freak out a little bit seeing that color, but honestly, when it's in a shallower vessel, you can definitely see that it's got the color that I'm looking for. Now the goal is just to keep oxygen away from it. Alright, so now it's time to measure our gravity, but first I made sure I poured a little extra in here just so I can taste some first. Cheers. It's weird. It's got a lot of melon on the nose, but the flavor is that citrusy flavor. A lot of grapefruit, a lot of tangerine, a little bit of orange as well. I'm trying to taste for diacetyl. I'm not picking up anything. I want to drink more, but I gotta measure my gravity first, so let's do that. Guys, this beer was supposed to finish out at 10-12, and guess where it landed? 10-12. Now, I did add some extra hops in there, and believe it or not, hops can contain some very trace amounts of residual sugars, so there might be a little bit more fermentation that happens, but to be honest with you, it's probably going to be so minute, I don't think it's going to move this gravity reading very far. But it's great news. We landed right where we were aiming, so that's fantastic. Alright guys, well at this point, we just need to let this sit for another few days, soak up those beautiful hop aroma and flavors, and then we're gonna keg it. So until then, I will see you soon. Well guys, it's keg day. We finished our dry hop process. We are sitting at about 18 days, I believe, since we put this in the fermenter. Pretty sure the gravity has completely settled out. I'm pretty sure fermentation's done. I did take off a sample, so I'll measure that later. But right now we're basically moving the beer from the fermenter into the keg. I have the keg below, and it's a closed loop transfer. So there's basically a hose running from the spigot through a filtration system to kind of filter out any hop particles, things like that, that may clog the actual keg. And then there's another piece of hose that filters right into the dip tube for the beer that goes directly into the keg. So the idea is this keg has been purged of oxygen. It's only CO2 in there, and then there's no oxygen going from the beer to the keg. It is not touching air, so the hope is that this is going to keep our beer looking beautiful. So now it's time where I go ahead and turn this on. I'm literally just flipping the switch here and getting the beer going, and then we're just gonna let the thing do its thing. Alright guys, so I have finished kegging the beer. It is now in my torpedo keg. I just literally have to carbonate it, and then it'll be ready to drink. Now here's a tip I would give you guys. While I was transferring from the fermenter into the keg with that closed loop transfer, I did notice it was transferring very, very slow. And I think the reason why is because in the keg there's a lot of CO2 pressure that's built up. So the beer has a hard time going in there because CO2 is trying to push stuff out. So just a tip for you guys, basically while you're doing that closed loop transfer, if you have a setup like mine, just kind of burp the keg a little bit, pull on that pin on top of the keg, and let that CO2 out periodically while the keg's getting filled up with beer. It took a lot longer than I anticipated, but I'm hoping that this process is going to prove to be a lot more successful than my previous attempts. As for the beer, it looks beautiful. Check it out. It has got a great color. This is basically pre-keg beer, so we'll see what happens to it now that it's sitting in the keg and it's going to get carbonated. We'll see if any oxygen got to it, if it changes the color of it. But if this is what we're dealing with, I mean, damn, I can't be more happy with that color. It is super hazy, you cannot see through it. And now that we're done with kegging, we just gotta wait a few days and we'll get to try the final product, so we'll see you soon. The beer's been kegged for a few days and it's been carbonated. It's time to try it with some of my friends. So the mission with this IPA was to get a bright, hazy, yellow, like sun-kissed hazy IPA. So looking at the color, I want to hear your guys' feedback first before I give mine. If someone were to define this as a hazy IPA, what would your feedback be?
I mean, I don't know if I would say it's that color. It's more of like a dark golden than anything else.
Yeah, it's definitely darker than I think you were probably aiming for. Definitely looks unfiltered. So I would definitely not say this is like a textbook West Coast. Definitely not. I can't see through it. So like you got the hazy part right.
Yeah.
It's just a bit darker than I think we would want for like that top tier, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I'm going to be fully honest, I wanted a more yellow color to this beer. It definitely darkened up after secondary and after kegging. It's not brown, which is great.
Yeah.
I don't think the oxygen hindered the quality of the beer as much, and I guess we'll find out once we actually dig in. But the color itself, I wanted that bright yellow, I wanted that murky yellow, and it's not quite there. Hey guys, are you wondering why we're still here? Well, it's been a week since we did the actual final beer review, and something very interesting happened. I told my friend Paul, the guy who was helping us with the water chemistry, I was telling him how I was a little disappointed, you know, the haziness of this beer dropped out, and he gave me the most obvious solution ever. He told me just shake the keg around a little bit. I guess all the hop residue, all the yeast, all that stuff fell out as soon as I cooled the beer down. So by mixing it up a little bit, now we have a beautiful hazy beer. I am quite happy with it now. This is literally what I was looking for, and I didn't even know I achieved it. So for you homebrewers out there, if you've been trying to brew hazy IPAs and they don't look hazy, just shake the keg a little bit. Makes sense because we do that with cans from time to time as well.
That's true, yeah.
So anyways, we're gonna drink it and see if it's any different. So cheers.
You know, I think it is a little different.
Still super fruit forward. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like there's more hop bite.
I'm trying to remember what it tasted like a week ago. My brain is just that bad. I think it's pretty smooth, actually. There is the hop bite, but I want to say it was more before.
No, well, I remember before what you said was it's super smooth, that you could drink about half of it before you actually start feeling the hops build up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right. I'd probably get about maybe halfway before any kind of bitterness started building. Mm-hmm. There is still that hasn't like gone away completely. I think maybe a little less. I don't know. I think maybe it's just that it smells better, and so I'm like more.
It's super aromatic. Tons of flavor too on the palate. Holy shit.
Yeah, maybe it's just the aroma got a nice little boost, and so I'm just kind of more happily drinking it.
He was like, just give me a half pour, man. Just give me a half pour. I'm like, nah.
Yeah, now as I'm like constantly kind of drinking it, that bitterness is starting to build again. I'm just still kind of amazed that it looks that different.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is night and day. That other one
It's
looked
kinda
unfiltered, and this straight up looks like...
Yeah, there's still a good amount of
Like
beer
hazy,
in the keg. Like, this isn't like a huge amount of time difference between the first time we tried it and now. So to me, it's just like, it's not like we're drinking the dregs now, you know?
No.
That's not what's happening.
Well, and there's no particulates floating in here. I mean, maybe some
yeah,
tiny
that's true.
little... itty-bitty little
maybe
hop
a little
flakes in there.
tiny
But they're not like
ones,
chunkies, you know?
No, it's not like an alchemist beer.
Yeah, it's not like the Alchemist beer.
Yeah, so I've definitely seen, like, from legit breweries, some chunky chunks. And this doesn't happen, so that's good.
Excellent.
'Cause
Well, I mean, so now you guys know exactly what the real final product was. I want to make sure I showcase this because that means that we actually achieved one out of the two things that we were trying to achieve with this beer, which was the haziness. So we got the haziness down, we just had to shake the keg a little bit. I'm going to go back to the drawing table and focus on making sure that this beer does not get oxidized. I would say that this color is still fine. It doesn't look questionable or anything. It's just, it's not that vibrant, bright yellow that we all know from those pale, hazy IPAs. So I'm definitely going to try to work on this again. Make sure oxygen is not getting into my beer, and doing everything I can to make sure it's the best quality possible. So, anywho, there you go, guys. That is the end of the review officially of this beer, Java's Juicy Hazy Double IPA. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a thumbs up. Share the video with your friends, homebrewers out there. If you have any feedback, any tips, any questions, please shoot them in the comments below. And until next time, I'm Jeff.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you again on Let's Have Some Beer. Cheers. But have you ever seen someone compare Pliny the Elder and Hetty Topper after aging for 2 years? Well, guess what? That's what we're doing today. So stay tuned for Let's Have Some Beer.